2, 3.
Okay. So let me just see who's here. Wanda, Sue, Tashi, Wei, Robin, Olive, and Linda. Okay. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So I'm going to sing a little song, and then we'll jump into today's topic, which is Jupiter and self-honesty. Self-knowledge is the key to unlock eternity, for I will only perceive that which I believe, and I can only see that which lives within me. In the temple of this moment, forever, for I am what I am, and I love what I am, for we are what we, and that's all that there is.
Beautiful.
So I picked that as our intro today, because a part of what I'm going to speak about is this notion that every single person on this planet, whether they like it or not, are bound to always gravitate towards some sort of cosmology, towards some sort of way of understanding reality. The reason why I find everyone is bound to be seeking and cultivating ongoingly a sense of meaning and understanding about life is because there does exist a thing called capital T truth, and that's Neptune Pisces. There's the underlying truth of unity, of oneness, of love, whatever words you want to describe it, but reality, what it is, before we interpret it, before we have an idea of it, there's a thing called reality. And since we're all of that reality, there's an inherent need for all souls to reconcile their existence with that reality. So everyone, whether a person's belief system or cosmology is, I don't have a belief, or I don't believe anything is out there, that, of course, right there is also a cosmology. It's something that's completely unavoidable. And so then it really comes back down to, why do we all have this various beliefs and perspectives and cosmologies that we have? And what is a way to understand the function of Jupiter, which in our charts represents in part how we will all come to understand reality? What is a way to understand it such that we can not get stuck in our existing cosmology, in our existing belief system? And one of the biggest challenges with Jupiter is basically the whole, I already know the answer syndrome. And in a sense, life has a potential to be an ongoing experience of revelation and discovery, but our insistence upon having figured it out already totally blocks that. And so Jupiter is a pilgrimage. Wherever Jupiter is in our chart, as well as wherever Jupiter is transiting through our chart in the sky at any moment, I really place that we can look towards for ongoing optimism and growth in our life, because it always, without fail, points to the possibility to see more of the truth. Jupiter is really about the understanding of it. It's where we are in relationship to capital R reality, and ongoingly develop a deeper awareness of what's actually real. And that's great news. That's exciting to know that there's this possibility for all of us in our journey. And I'm speaking about it in a very Jupiterian kind of way. That, this is why Jupiter is also that salesperson that will, tell you something like, here's this product that will be great for you. And basically it's, oh, I never thought that was possible. This is a great idea. And we're going to go into something new and experience and explore it. Or a teacher that's very enthusiastic about their teachings and will get you to, join and follow. The big issue with Jupiter, though, is a strong tendency relative to the need to feel that we know, relative to the impulse within all of us to create security and continuity within ourselves. There's a strong tendency to establish based upon what someone else has told us. And that's one of the biggest issues I feel within spirituality, within really not just spiritual, everything really, how we walk about our life, and so often weighing in our mind a story of what's right, what to do, how to do things. And so I want to speak a little bit about that. So before I go into this, though, I want to share a dream that I just had. I was taking a nap no more than just an hour ago. And the last dream that I had before I woke up, I was teaching this class on Jupiter in front of a live audience. And at first I forgot what I was teaching, so I had to think about it. I wasn't sure if I was talking about Pluto or Jupiter, and then I'm like, oh, it's a Jupiter class. And I noticed in the audience that there were all kinds of people in the class, including people that I wouldn't have expected to attend this class, people that aren't usually interested in astrology or the things that I like to talk about. And when I woke up, something that I was reflecting on, well, in the dream itself, I took awareness of that, and I felt inspired to really make sure I was integrating the teachings that I was going to speak about. Because the more I speak from a place of, here's the answer, here what things mean, the less accessible that becomes. But the more I speak from inner truth, the more accessible that becomes. And there's a very interesting intersection, I find, between what's personally true and what's universally true as well. Because the truth isn't ever an answer that says, this is what reality is, this is how things are, this is what's right, and thus that's what's wrong. The truth is always just a lived experience. And it's indisputable. And so when we resonate and when we share and speak and live and express and walk from a place of personal truth, it doesn't even have to resonate with someone else's path, but just the energy of personal truth resonates with truth. So it's something that can inspire everyone. And that's just the nature of it. So there's that saying, just like the ocean tastes salty, the truth tastes like freedom. And so whenever we recognize truthfulness, there's something that opens up inside of us, something that we become more accessible to, if we're willing. The thing about Jupiter is there always has to be a willingness to rest upon the foundation of not having all the answers, so that whatever we're exploring can really become a fresh, new, direct experience. So in this dream that I had, one of the participants, I know him in this reality to be an atheist. And it's like, why would this guy be going to an astrology class? But it was so exciting, and I love thinking about this right now after this dream. What is it like for me to be teaching, with my framework and my conditioned way of looking at things, in a way where it's not alienating to even an atheist? And that's something that I'm personally exploring. I have Jupiter in Sagittarius, conjunct Neptune. So anything conjunct Neptune is, of course, what's being dissolved. And the very nature of Neptune is about universality. Its ultimate movement is to be like water without discrimination. So with Jupiter, and it's in a balsamic phase, which means my Jupiter is closing into Neptune. It's completing a cycle. So in part, what that reflects for me, on a karmic level, in my understanding, are lifetimes of having been seeking knowledge, and then Neptune being disillusioned by realizing the temporariness and the positionality of all these beliefs, that everything that I believed required some sort of, or rather everything that I've come to know to be true has always required also for me to believe in something or believe in someone outside of myself. So the ongoing realization of I don't have a clue what the hell's going on here. And then kind of coming back to that as a foundation for more discovery. And so I find more and more in my work that my teachings, Jupiter, my path is to not so much be an astrology teacher, speaking astrology to astrologers, but coming more and more into personal truth and just sharing that. And my Jupiter, Neptune's in the 4th house. So the 4th house is a Cancer house, and there's a natural inconjunct between Sagittarius archetype and the Cancer archetype. So that would be 150 degrees or 210, depending on which direction you go. And what this reflects is the possibility of emotional alienation. or developing an understanding of life that doesn't actually work with the emotional body. And so one of the karmic dynamics that this reflects for me is literally having been uprooted, traveling, seeking truth, but to the negation of the emotional body. And wherever in the it's where there's also a tendency to underappreciate that area of life, to be so focused on the knowledge, on the seeking, on the journey, on finding something, that we're actually missing out on the moment. So it's never with who I'm with, never in the place that I'm at. It's always somewhere else. So there's been a lot of restlessness, a lot of seeking. And then in that, a lot of running away from roots, fourth house, security, home, family, people that were close to me, people that loved me. Because Jupiter, Sag, I believe I had to find something. And this can be also very emotionally alienating to other people, just to humans and their emotions. If my orientation to their emotional experience is, well, you should meditate, or you should, go out and work on that and try the spiritual practice. And earlier in my life, I feel that was very much my orientation. So a part of my journey with this Jupiter and with Neptune in this lifetime is simplifying my beliefs so that they are actually inclusive to the emotional body. So Sag, Jupiter in the fourth, pilgrimage for me is in the home. And I find what's opening for me as Saturn's beginning to move into my fourth house is this natural curiosity about the role of family and children, householding in this life as the next pilgrimage, really naturally arising for me. Now, so let's come back to this idea around beliefs versus direct knowledge. I was saying earlier that one of the biggest dynamics that I feel is truly it's not addressed and given enough attention, I feel. Maybe that's because I'm really sensitive to that with all of my Sagittarius, and I have Chiron in the ninth house, is where teachers will often present knowledge and information, and it's held in such a way where the vibration around it is, I already have the answer and you don't, because you're not experienced enough. And I find in my own direct experience that orientation to truth is inherently invalidating to the essence of spirituality, which is always about direct experience. And it's always going to invite each individual to be honest with themselves right now. It's part of my journey, and this is also reflected in that Jupiter conjunction with Neptune, the dissolving of all kinds of beliefs. So I've been through phases of doing different meditation practices, following different traditions, and following the guidance of different teachers. And there's this recurring theme throughout my whole life around whatever practice I was doing it for a long time, getting to a point where I finally accepted, I don't know what the hell I'm doing or why I'm doing it, almost realizing that I was trying to get somewhere. So I was doing this one mantra practice for about a year, every day, 3 times a day. And there was one occasion where I'm sitting in this person's room by myself. So my teacher said, do this practice every day, 3 times a day. What were the words? Without exception or at all costs, something like that, total devotion and commitment. So in my hearty youthfulness and excitement and devotion, I said yes to that. But there was some part of me that felt doubt. I'm like, okay, I'm just totally trusting this guy's words. So I'm sitting in this person's room doing this practice, and it was pretty much towards the end of this year where I was doing it every day. And I was already experiencing doubt. Other people have done it. It worked for them. My teacher is pretty awake. I should try it. But there was a meal happening downstairs. And my nephew, who I really felt called to be with, he was downstairs, and I don't see him very often. And I just wanted to be there with him for this meal. And I was struggling with that. And just think about my Jupiter in the 4th house, right? Home, family, nourishing meal. So I was focusing on this spiritual practice, just kind of noticing that now. I was focusing on this practice that was keeping me separate from my family. And so I was really struggling with that for like a good 30 minutes or so. And the practice was almost over. And I got to this place where I had to become radically honest with myself and say, right now, I don't have confidence in what I'm doing. Therefore, this is not a spiritual practice right now. And I had to give myself full permission to make whatever decision felt true for me right now and let go of anything else that I might have been believing. And in that moment of letting go, this release happened for me. And it's like some sort of energetic opening happened, and I was in this really deep vibration for a while. And because it was so deep, I just kind of stayed there anyway. And so it was a paradox. I ended up not going downstairs because this whole energy thing was happening. So I just sat in it, but I wasn't doing my meditation practice either. So this opening happened when I finally accepted, I don't really believe in what I'm doing. I'm not sure. I don't know what the answer is. I'm going to have to just be honest with myself. There was another occasion where I was traveling and I landed in a city in California. I was hitchhiking and I got a ride, and she overshot. She like drove past where I needed to go for an hour, but she couldn't go back. It was 11 o'clock at night. And so there was no buses. So I'm in this city and I don't have any sleeping gear. I just have a computer and a little knapsack. So I decided I'll go to a park and I'll find just a place to sit by a tree and just kind of maybe get a little bit of sleep that night. But it was getting cold and I was starting to doubt myself. And this was a day when the planet, the asteroid Lucifer, was transiting over my Jupiter. So Lucifer was entering my fourth house. And for those who aren't familiar with the archetype of Lucifer, it's a light bearer. And it's where we have potential to interface or shine or experience light and reveal that to others. And it's light in the context of places that might need that illumination. It's literally that energy of bringing in hope and inspiration and awareness and truth. Or it can be the place where we're dissuaded, where we kind of give up and give in to the impulse of distrust and separation. So I was aware that transit was happening on my Jupiter at that time. And I was getting to a point where I was feeling like, I'm really cold. This isn't going to work for me. I really don't want to stay up all night. And I was actually going to teach a class the next day. This was like in 2011, during the time that I was just beginning to teach. And so I finally decided that I would call a friend that lived an hour away and ask if he would pick me up. And he already offered when I told him that I wasn't going to visit him that night. And I didn't want to bother him to come and pick me up. So after waiting an hour or so of struggling with trying to settle in, I decided, okay, I give up. Here's a person that's willing to, again, fourth house, take care of me, take me to a home. And I'm holding that whole orientation. I have second house Pluto, so my bottom line has been this false notion of self-sufficiency and self-reliance, right? Wanting to somehow figure it out so that I got everything figured out on my own, but kind of falling on my face time and time again until I finally learned about interdependence. And fourth house, family, really just this energy of family and mutual caring for one another. So I'm on the phone with him and I say, yeah, you know what? I need you to come and pick me up. I realize that would be great. I'm so grateful for that. And I'm sorry. But this is truth. And I came at it from a place of acceptance. While I'm speaking to him, this man walks by and using very vulgar language says, fuck that, get off the phone. You're coming with me. He's like, yeah, don't go anywhere. You're coming with me. I'll take care of you. Just like a lot more cursing. I was taken aback, very vulgar, but I can tell that he was genuine. So I was like, oh, forget it. I got a place to stay. So I get off the phone and this man, I just go with him and I have no clue where he's taking me. He takes me to a building, to the other side of a building that I was facing, to the parking lot that was behind the building, where there are a lot of people that were homeless, that were sleeping there along the building. He brought me to a community of people that were all sleeping together. And he said, just, find a spot, wait here, and I'll come back with some blankets. done. And it was grace. And he came back. I don't know where he got those blankets from, but he, brought me a package. It was in the package already. And he, I had a full body pillow and some sheets that I used. And in the morning I woke up really early, and I just asked the man that was sleeping next to me if he wanted my sheets, because he had less than I did. So I gave the pillows and the sheets to him, and I left. And I was filled with so much love and gratitude. Again, Jupiter in the 4th house, a spiritual adventure into a home. And that home with, Sagittarius and Jupiter has this quality to it that it's totally mutable. So for me, home is never going to be about, being homebodied or traveling. It's not about one or the other inherently. It's about home. And that's the essence of Jupiter. If we can tap into that quality of honesty, I could just hear Cat Wendy. If we can tap into that energy of honesty and genuineness with ourselves along the path, wherever our Jupiter is placed, we find that moment where we are is where we tune into the universal principles of the Tao. And the basic principle that I'm really describing here in essence is, in order to be filled, we have to let go. Jeff Green often talked about this aspect of Jupiter that we often don't read about, but it's the part of Jupiter where we talk about letting go. And a lot of times during Jupiter transits, there will be a loss of some kind, or we'll have the realization to let go of something. And the reason for that is it's basic. In order to receive, the hands have to be empty. So the letting go is really the letting go of a belief. It's the letting go of the existing orientation that kept us stuck in a worldview that by its very nature limits us from experiencing the Tao. And so when we're honest and we're open to the experience, which doesn't require we don't have to read any books or remind ourselves of anything. It just really comes back into being really honest with this moment. When we're open to experience in that way, then we can actually live and experience the Tao. We can experience the nature of creation itself. And one thing that I wrote here is sincerity and honesty and genuineness, I find, is the foundation of spirituality. And it's less about the practices that we do and the things that we do to get somewhere, but 100% the way in which we orient ourselves to reality. So I want to read a poem that I wrote about this just a few days ago. Truly with my, I got like 7 planets in Sag or something like that. And it's an ongoing journey for me coming into a sense of sincerity with myself. And so I wrote this at a time where, I was meditating that morning, and I came back into this feeling of like, when am I going to figure this shit out? Like when am I going to wake up? And that was the thought that I was having. And I was just, I was feeling frustrated by how slow things seem to be going. And so this is what came through. Allow the appreciation for all you are to discover. Allow the appreciation for all that you are to discover. Be greater than the fear of what you might lose. Allow your anticipation of lightness to be greater than the burden you carry. Allow your gratitude for the real to be stronger than your focus on the unreal. To perceive, you need not got it all out. You need not be perfected in the clarity of your choices. Just be willing and grateful for this moment. Just be honest now. Be honest about your doubt. Be honest about your uncertainty. Keep your attention on this great truth. Where you are is where infinity is. There is infinite power here to learn and grow and heal. All that you need and all that is for the highest comes to pass now. There's something else. Okay, and this is another one that I'll read. Different states of mind will create very different worlds for you. When you seek an answer, a direction for what, where, when, who, you live in a world of right and wrong. That world does not exist. When you choose your heartfelt intention for how you are to move, It matters not the what, where, who, and when. When you stop looking, cease waiting or searching for confirmation. When you go dark without a light, then you live in the world of magic, of miracles, of spirit. This is true reality. You remember that there are no problems to solve, no lessons to learn. Just this present unfolding. Life carries itself. With you, through you, as you. With us, through us, as us. It is your choice. Relinquish looking for security and you will be home. Your beautiful sincerity is enough. One more little poem. Live without context. No map, but others have laid down some pretty sweet advice. That is a blessing. So I'm going to share a couple more stories, and I'm just going to let that lead the way with the teaching, so there's nothing else that comes up to speak. Recently, Jupiter entered, let me share my chart, that makes sense here. So recently, Jupiter entered my first house. And, in the astrological world, Jupiter entering the first house is a joyful experience. Everyone talks about it as just so great. And then the transit of Jupiter through the first house is just like life, expansion. Whereas when it's moving through the 12th house, often it will carry this quality of dissolving. 12, 13 years ago, when Jupiter was transiting through my 12th house, I was in a phase of life that I was just blossoming in my spirituality and going on a lot of meditation retreats, seeking, really letting go of a lot of the beliefs that I grew up with. And then when I entered my first house, I actually found astrology at that time. So I'm just going to share my chart here. Okay. So you can see I have a 20-degree Virgo rising. And yeah, here's all of my Sag down there in the 3rd and 4th house. So this past summer, Jupiter entered my first house during that weekend, and I was offering my healing services there. People that know me said, yeah, will you come and do your astrology work there? And I felt not completely sincere about doing astrology reading. The work I do, I find less actually considering it straight up astrology readings. That's more of a context that I've been identified with and that the world knows me as, but it hasn't felt. So I put up a sign, right? Intuitive guidance, evolutionary astrology readings, have a sign-up list, rates, donation, describe it. No one comes. People come eventually, and I get like a bar of chocolate and $5. Felt horrible. Didn't feel very good about myself. And the next day, I'm struggling making new signs, calling myself different things. And then I finally accepted that the invitation for me in this moment was to be completely honest with myself about what I'm actually doing. And I found that I only had the impulse to call it evolutionary astrology readings because I had the fear that if I didn't use the word astrology, people wouldn't value what I'm doing. People wouldn't want to come and see me. But I really just gave myself to this intuitive sense that I just wanted to call it intuitive guidance because that's what it is. In its essence, what I'm doing is that. And astrology is the way that I gather the language and the knowledge of the soul's dynamics. But take the astrology away or put it there, the essence of what I'm doing is intuitive guidance. And I didn't want to point to the astrology as the essence because it isn't the essence for me. It's a beautiful vehicle that I use. So I decided to just trust who I am, to trust what I'm doing and what I'm bringing forth. And I just put up there intuitive guidance, and I didn't even create time slots because I honestly realized, you know what, I just don't know. I don't know how long a session's supposed to be. I know what people have told me, and I just don't know. And this was during the hour, I found out later, that I wasn't even remembering that this was happening during that hour, that Jupiter was crossing my ascendant. What happened almost immediately after that is a person came for a session. They really appreciated it. They recommended more people. Basically, the whole day until well into the night, I was sitting down in one spot giving sessions. It was like a flood of activity. And what was new for me, for the first time in my life, I didn't feel exhausted at all. I kept on thinking, should I take a break or should I stop this? And besides for stretching a little bit or eating a little bit of food or water, I didn't take any breaks because I felt so energized by it. I gave myself total permission for the first time in my life to focus entirely on direct connection, to listen, and to really open up the intuition, and to really see each session as a spiritual pilgrimage, to feel like I'm going on a journey with someone, to hold that sense of adventure and curiosity, instead of Jupiter having the answers already. And see, with all of my Sag in the third house, the pressure that I've created for myself over many lifetimes is the need to have something to say, to prove myself, to prove that I have knowledge, to prove that I have understanding. And that's sort of a shadow default for me, to kind of go back into that place. So to relinquish that and truly just be open to the experience was so incredibly liberating. So that revelation continues to unfold for me. And there's this quality to Jupiter that I find, which is, it's the honesty and sincerity that is enough. Jeff Green described it as putting all the cards on the table. And so we don't really have investment in the outcome. That's almost a sign that we're being genuine with ourselves, where the truth is good enough, even if it defies convention, even if it's not what we expected. We know it's a telltale sign that we're being genuine if the truth itself is good as it is. If our truth, if our belief system, if our approach is to achieve a result, then it's conditional, and we're actually just playing out an idea, a story. And it's not actually coming from sincerity. So I love that idea of all the cards are on the table and we don't know what's going to happen. And that's the mentality of a person who is a good traveler, right? They have an intention in mind. They feel genuine about where they're going, which is different than seeking, right? It's different than restlessly wandering and looking for something. There's a way of traveling where there's a feeling of, this is right for me, and I don't know what's going on, and that's great. It's exhilarating. And a part of, with all of my Sag in the fourth house, Jupiter in the fourth house, a dynamic that I've experienced, a belief that I've had, is reflected strongly in that whole patriarchal separation between the spiritual path and the householder path. I've had a lot of lifetimes where Jupiter, Sag in the fourth, Mercury, Neptune, going out to a monastery far away, Sagittarius, where home, fourth house, was my spiritual people, my teachers, my teachings, my books, Mercury. And I took refuge. You can tell with that fourth house how at home I feel with spiritual teachings and spiritual bookstores, right? Or ashrams or monasteries and things like that. How familiar and in a sense nourishing it is for me. That's a very old way of being for me. But what was limiting for me in that was the separation, the sense of, I can't find this anywhere. I have to have this particular context. So it became almost like a religion about where I will find home. So what's happened often in this lifetime when I've been in domestic situations, and I grew up in a pretty stable home environment in New Jersey, parents were together, I traveled a lot to go to school, but my home life, we didn't move around a lot. But inwardly, I was always restless. And when I was a youth, I would spend the weekends out. I just tried to go out as much as I could, constantly trying to go somewhere else. And when I left after high school, constantly moving around. But I've always saw that home felt like a limiting thing for me. And like I said earlier, now I'm coming back into this place where I'm just so curious and excited about how building a home gets to be a part of the awakening.
Ari Moshe, Ari, yes,
Yes.
we have 1 minute left. So
Okay. Well, how about we just let me bring my stop the sharing.
Okay.
Let me just end it there because nothing is like immediately coming up. Or let me just take a look at my notes.
Okay.
Oh yeah, well there's one more thing that I can share, and we can talk more about this next time. But yeah, we'll save it for a little bit of next time. I'll tune into Jupiter and Libra a little bit, so we'll keep that there.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so everyone, part 2 is coming up in the next meeting, Jupiter and self-honesty. So we'll see you all then, and thank you so much, Ari Moshe.
Linda.
Beautiful. Thank you.